Good afternoon, everyone. Today's webinar is how to plan and prepare for taking the CMCA exam. My name is Laura Lozano, and I am the Credentialing Associate here at CAMICB.
And my name is Karina May, and I'm one of the webinar administrators here at CAMICB.
And before we get started, we just wanted to let everyone know that the presentation will last about 15 minutes. And you can message us any questions throughout the presentation by using the tool on the control panel. You can also find a PDF copy of this presentation with hyperlinks included. And at the end of the program, we'll have some time to answer your questions. All right, let's get started. Karina, what are we covering today?
Today, we're going to be covering 4 segments. First, we'll cover applying for the exam, including the authorization to test email. Next, we'll cover planning for the exam, including what to expect and some test-taking strategies. Then we'll cover preparing for the exam, some study resources, including our e-learning course. And then finally, we'll cover taking the exam. So keeping your confidence high and your stress level low.
Excellent. And now, what exactly is the CMCA?
The CMCA is the only international certification for community association managers, and it's officially called the Certified Manager of Community Associations. It demonstrates that you are a board-certified community manager who maintains their certification because it requires recertification every 2 years. It lets the public know that you are up to date on any changing laws, regulations, or any other hot topics in the area, and it helps to identify you as a competent and up-to-date manager. And I also wanted to touch on the fact that this is specifically for community association managers and not property managers.
And would you be able to elaborate on the difference between community association managers and property managers?
Sure. A community association manager can manage every type of community. So condominium associations, homeowner associations, resort communities, and commercial tenant associations. A community association manager works directly with property owners and homeowners. By comparison, a property manager oversees individual rental units or a group of rental units, such as an apartment complex. So that means they're going to be responsible for managing the entire property, whereas community association managers are responsible for common areas and not individually owned properties. So that essentially, in a nutshell, is the difference between community association managers and property managers. And the CMCA is specifically for community association managers.
All right, so moving on to our next topic, how does one apply for the exam?
Once you have met one of the 3 prerequisite options, your next step is to apply for the CMCA exam at camicb.org. The cost of the application is $360, and that covers the cost of the application processing and the exam itself. Once you have submitted the application, within about 3 to 5 business days, you'll receive what's called an authorization to test email, or ATT. And this email will give you instructions on how to schedule your exam at a Pearson VUE testing center.
Are there any other fees other than the $360?
No, the $360 covers the cost of the application processing and the exam itself. There are no other fees for the CMCA exam other than the $360 application fee.
Perfect. Now let's go ahead and move on to the authorization to test email.
Once you get your authorization to test email, you want to look for 3 main items. And first, you'll want to find your 1-year window. So that's the 1 year where you're approved to schedule your exam. And then you'll want to find your first and last name on the application and verify that it matches your current photo ID. And then the last thing you want to find is your HMRO ID number. And these are the 3 items what you're going to use to schedule your exam.
All right, so next we have here is how do you schedule the exam?
Okay, so once you've identified and verified those 3 items I just mentioned, you can schedule your exam by either contacting the phone number provided, or you can schedule your exam online using the instructions included in your email. And be sure to schedule your exam several weeks in advance of your desired test date. And we actually recommend at least 3 months prior. And this is to make sure that you would that the date that you would like to take your exam is not booked up before you schedule. You don't want to wait until a month or two before your year authorization expires and then find out that there aren't any suitable test dates. Now, if you have a conflict with your currently scheduled appointment to take your exam, you can certainly reschedule. However, you'll need to contact Pearson VUE at least 24 hours in advance. And if you reschedule your exam less than 24 hours before your exam, then you'll be counted as a no-show and you will forfeit your application fee.
Great. Now let's go ahead and move on to how to prepare and plan for the CMCA.
So your first step should be to take a look over the type of content that will be included on the CMCA exam. And you can see on the infographic to the right-hand side here that there are 6 key knowledge areas that are going to be tested on the exam. You'll notice that each of these key knowledge areas has a percentage, and that has to do with how the exam is graded, and that is cumulative grading. And what that means is that candidates are graded on performance in all knowledge areas. So a weak score in one area can be offset by a strong performance in another. Candidates do not have to achieve a fixed percentage score in each area to achieve an overall passing score. So once you have a good understanding of the test content as an overview as to what those knowledge areas are, then you'll want to delve a little deeper and review the terms and knowledge areas for each of those. You'll also want to understand the difference between applied knowledge and concrete knowledge. And to elaborate, concrete knowledge is best described as recall knowledge of the terms, facts, and theories you learn, for example, from a course like the M100. Applied knowledge, on the other hand, is more comprehensive and involves the use of learned information into new and concrete situations to solve problems that have a single answer. So for example, what is a quorum would not be a question you would see on the CMCA exam. You could, however, find a question like, quorum requirement conflicts are resolved by which of the following? And then you would see 4 possible answers. So once you have a good understanding of the overall structure of what the exam looks like and what knowledge is going to be required, then your next step will be to create a personalized study plan. And a great tool to help with this is our CMCA preparation e-learning course. And this is a great tool to start out with because it gives you an overview of what the program looks like and what study tools are available. And it helps establish where you are and where your current understanding of those knowledge areas are. And then lastly, you'll want to look at the strategies for standardized test taking. And we do have a CMCA study guide, and that includes some test taking strategies that you can review while you're in the planning phase for the CMCA exam. All right, now before we dive into current resources, we want to highlight the CMCA self-assessment tool. Laura, can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So the CMCA self-assessment is a new free tool that helps you evaluate your or make you familiar with each knowledge areas on the exam. And there are 2 formats available. There is an interactive electronic version with radio buttons to track your confidence and build a personalized study plan. And then there is also a printable version you can complete by hand. And the self-assessment is not graded and does not predict performance, but is designed to highlight where to focus your efforts. All right, so now let's talk about the current resources available.
All right, so we also have the CMCA study guide as well as the CMCA handbook. And these are 2 free resources that are downloadable PDFs that are available at any time. There's also the Foundation for Community Association Research Best Practice Reports, which are free downloadable PDFs. And then we have webinars and videos, including the CMCA e-learning course, which is available for free at any time. We also have the CMCA practice exam, which provides a realistic sense of the exam content and question format because it provides questions that have rotated off of the CMCA exam. We also have Quizlet, which is a fun interactive online tool that you can use to help you understand key terms and definitions. And then finally, we offer prerequisite course material. So for example, if you took the M100, you have access to that prerequisite course material.
And Karina, where can candidates find all of this information?
So all the study materials for the CMCA exam can be found on our website at camicb.org. under the exam preparation option in the menu at the top of our screen.
And are all of these resources available for free?
Some of these options are available for free and some of them are available at a cost.
All right, thank you. So now let's go ahead and dive in and review all the resources you mentioned.
Sure, let's go ahead and start off with the CMCA handbook. This is one of our free downloadable PDFs, and it will cover the exam policies and procedures. It also contains a detailed outline of how the exam is structured. And this is a great resource to start out with because it gives you a really good overview as to the program as a whole. Next, we have the CMCA study guide, and this helps candidates develop exam preparation strategies. And as I mentioned earlier, it also contains some standardized test-taking strategies, which are great to help plan for your exam. And then it also identifies knowledge areas and content that will be covered. We also have the CMCA practice exam, which is available to purchase for $40. And this allows you to become familiar with the exam content and question types because it contains questions that were rotated off of the exam. These are not current questions, but rather questions that were previously used on the actual CMCA exam. So while these are not questions you're going to find when you take your exam, it will help you understand just how those questions are structured and the best way to answer them.
Great. So now let's go into Quizlet. And this is a free online tool which will help you grasp key terms and definitions because it offers multiple interactive study methods. Included are things like flashcards and little mini games and all sorts of fun interactive methods for you to understand some of the terminology and definitions that will be covered in the exam. You also have the Foundation for Community Association Research Best Practices reports, and these are all free downloadable PDFs that focus on industry best practices. They contain several case studies that help with applied knowledge. And then we also have the CMCA Study Kit, which is available for a fee. And this is a collection of 6 titles from the CAI's Guides for Association Practitioners, or GAPS. And this will go further in depth and analyze specific knowledge areas. And actually, CAI has created a digital version of the CMCA Study Kit. Previously, it was only available to purchase as a physical selection of titles that you will have to order from the bookstore. So now the bookstore has converted this so that you can download it immediately. All right, Karina, so earlier you mentioned an e-learning course. Can you provide some more information about that?
Sure. So we have a helpful study tool called the CMCA Exam Preparation e-learning course. And this is a free study tool and is a course comprised of 2 sections. The first section contains 4 modules that review the exam format and help you create a personalized preparation plan. And then the second section contains 3 scenario-based modules designed to put the most challenging exam subjects into context. And those include risk management and insurance, financial controls, and governance, legal, and ethical conduct. And you'll notice that each module will take approximately 25 minutes to complete, but it allows you to stop and start the program for you to learn at your own pace. And you can access this resource online at camicb.org by selecting the exam preparation e-learning option from the exam preparation drop-down menu.
Great. All right. So now let's go ahead and talk about the process for taking the CMCA exam. So once you have arrived at your CMCA examination schedule date, you'll want to ensure that you leave yourself plenty of time to arrive, park, and sign into your testing appointment. You want to be sure that you don't schedule any appointments before or after the exam, and you also want to plan for a 2.5 hours, 120 questions exam. If you have questions about what it would look like when you go into Pearson VUE Testing Center and what that examination process looks like, Pearson VUE does have a web page that reviews the process with the security involved as well. And you can check out the link either in the attached handout, or you can simply reach out to us at info@camicb.org, and we'll be happy to send you the link. All right, so now would you mind talking a little more here about ID verification?
So when you're on your way to the testing center, double check that your current government issued photo ID matches what's listed on your CMCA authorization to test email. Not only will you want to ensure that the photo ID matches your first and last name, but you'll also want to be sure that it is not expired. Pearson VUE will validate your appointment based off of your ID, and if the ID you present is not current and has expired, they will not be able to verify your identity.
All right, thank you. And now what about the exam survey?
At the end of your exam, you'll be provided with a survey to complete, and the survey will include demographic questions as well as questions on what study materials you found the most useful for the exam. These questions are optional and will provide us with important data to determine how best to improve our program.
And finally, what are the last steps after completing the test?
So once you've completed your exam, you'll get your test results immediately. The test results will include what's called a candidate feedback report, and the candidate feedback report will include a score report. If you do not pass, you will receive your score. Candidates must receive at a minimum 600 out of 800 to pass. Now, the candidates who do pass will not receive a numerical score and instead will receive a score of essentially pass. Then typically in about 3 to 5 business days or fewer, we will receive your result from Pearson VUE and be able to upload that information into the database to officially award you your CMCA. And once that has been completed, we will send you an official email correspondence to let you know that you've officially become a CMCA. Now, if you don't pass the exam, you can certainly retake it, and the process is very similar to how you submitted your initial application. However, the application fee for the CMCA retake application has been reduced from $360 to $200. And then also a quick note, you are not required to retake the M100 course to retake the CMCA. And also, candidates cannot use the 2-year experience option to retake the CMCA. That option is a one-time waiver and cannot be used more than once. If you use the 2-year experience option as your prerequisite for your CMCA exam and failed, you will have to use one of the other 2 prerequisite options in order to submit the CMCA retake application.
All right, thank you so much, Karina. That was incredible, informative. Now it looks like we have some time to take some questions. Did you see any questions from our audience?
Let me take a look. I see a question from Crystal. Is there a fee for the practice exam?
Yes, the fee for the practice exam, it's $40.
And then if people want to retake it, do they have to pay for it again?
Yes, every time you want to retake it, you're going to be paying $40.
Thank you. And then Allison asked, where can I find the e-learning course? I don't see it on my dashboard.
Okay, so you can go to our website, CAMICB, and then under the exam preparation tab, you'll see a link for the e-learning course.
Yeah, it's not on this dashboard with this webinar. You have to go directly to the website, camicb.org. All right, and then Marin has a question. You said that you have to get 600 out of 800 to pass, but there are only 120 questions.
Yes, so the 120 questions, and also I wanted to clarify that some of those questions are what we say pilot questions, so they don't really give you a score, but the exam won't show you what are those questions, so you need to focus on all of the 120 questions. And regarding the score, yes, that is the passing score, it's 600 out of the 800.
And then Vanessa is asking about retaking the exam. Can you retake it once for free?
No. So once you have taken the exam the first time and say you failed, that any time that you want to retake the exam, you will need to complete a retake application and pay a $200 retake fee. Every time that you submit a new application, you're going to be authorized for another whole year to take the exam.
And then I have another person who's asked about us repeating what was said about the prerequisites for retaking the exam.
Yeah, so, and I guess what I wanted to clarify is about the 2-year experience prerequisite option. So I understand that some of our candidates have been in the industry for more than 2 years. So they want to use that experience as a prerequisite. So we basically are accepting that prerequisite option that you have for one time only waiver for the CMCA exam. So let's say you use your 2 years experience, you take the CMCA exam and you failed, then you won't be able to reapply unless you change that prerequisite option. So for instance, if you have a license or um, if you have taken the M100 course, or if you haven't taken the M100 course, then you need to complete one of the prerequisite courses in order for you to reapply for the CMCA exam.
All right, thank you. And then I have a question from Barbara, and she has asked, can I pay for multiple times to practice the CMCA practice exam, or is it one time only for $40?
Correct. Is it one time only? Previously, I know the practice exam was offered by a different company, which it was called Test Track, and it was offered at $25 for one attempt and $40 for two attempts. But now the practice exam, it's fully offered by us on our website, and so the fee to purchase the practice exam, it's $40.
And then Adrian has asked, how soon can you retake the exam if you fail?
So after you take the exam and you failed, Pearson Buell will send us a report, and Pearson Buell send us a report twice a week with all the test results from all of the candidates. And so once we update each one account, then you'll be able to access a retake application. So that's what we advise our candidates, that after they have taken the exam, wait about 3 to 5 business days for us to update your account, and then you'll be able to access the retake application.
Thank you. And then Martha would like to know about the best practice reports. Are they free and where are they?
Yeah, so the best practice reports are offered on our website, CAMICB, under the exam preparation. And yes, those are free, and some of them are available for a fee.
And then Tiara would like to know if my CMCA deadline is at the end of April, but I have not scheduled it yet, will that become an issue with scheduling?
Well, it all depends on the testing center that you select. I will advise to contact Pearson View as soon as you can and try to schedule your exam, even if you're not ready to take it now. So at least you have your date secure. You don't want it to be running at the last minute and find out that there are no exam appointments available for you. So reach out to Pearson View and try to schedule an exam appointment as soon as possible.
And then Julia would like to know, do you have to take this test every 2 years to keep your certification?
No. The recertification process of your CMCA, once you have obtained the CMCA certification, it's every 2 years, you need to complete a recertification application and complete 16 hours of continuing education. So the requirements are 16 hours of continuing education and then pay a service fee every year. That is what you need to do in order to keep your CMCA. Now, let's say that your CMCA lapse and you want to regain your certification. So if your CMCA has been inactive for more than 5 years, then the only way for you to regain it is basically to start over and taking the CMCA exam. So you don't want to keep your CMCA inactive for so long if you don't want to take the CMCA again.
Great, thank you. And then Adrian has asked, are there 20 pilot questions in the 120 questions on the exam?
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's 20, it's 10 or 20 pilot questions. But yes, there are some pilot questions included in the exam.
And then is there a calculator provided?
That is something that you need to ask Pearson View again, because you're going to be going into the testing center. So you want to make sure that whatever you need, it's included once you get to your testing appointment.
And then I have another question about the format. Will there be multiple choice questions or scenario based or a mix of both?
Nope, it's multiple choice questions.
And then another question from Jason. Jason would like to know, there are multiple CAMs who want to study together. Are there any group rates for branches?
You know, that's a question that we get asked a lot, and unfortunately, we do not offer any like study groups. But I do know, however, that the local CAI chapters offer that. I'm not sure how often, but I'm sure if you reach out to your local CAI chapter and ask about their upcoming study group for the CMCA exam, you'll get more information about that.
Thank you. And then Jake would like to know, how do I find a testing center near me?
Okay, so you can go to Pearson's View website. There is a little option for you to find a testing center, and you can include your zip code, and then it will show you a list of all the testing centers in the area.
Thank you. And then I see a couple people have asked about finding the e-learning course. I think just getting clarification on the e-learning course.
Sure. So you want to go to the CAMICB website, and there is a whole section under exam preparation. You'll find the link to the e-learning course and also to links to all of the study resources that we mentioned in this webinar, such as the practice exam, the study guide, the handbook, and Quizlet, and all the other study resources.
And I believe if you hover over that on the top main navigation, if you hover over exam preparation, I think it is, it has its own page too, so you'll see it on the drop down. All right, let's see here. Other questions. There's a question about Quizlet. When I signed up, it was a 7-day free trial. Is there another way to get this for free?
I believe no. The only way is by purchasing after the trial is offered.
Okay. And then Haley would like to know, how soon do we find out our scores after our exam? And if we pass, when do we get our certification?
Okay, so and this is something I wanted to also clarify. Once you have passed the CMCA exam, you only receive a pass score. You won't receive a numeric score. You only receive a numeric score once if you fail the exam. And so let's say you pass the exam. So Pearson View is gonna send us a report of all the tests over the last week, included the one who passed. Once they receive that passing score, we'll update your account, and then you'll receive an email from us confirming that you have been awarded the CMCA. You have a link to access your CMCA digital badge, and then also your listing will be available on the final CMCA directory on CAMICB, and you receive a physical copy of your CMCA certificate between 2 to 3 weeks after passing the exam. And you receive that confirmation email or congratulations email from us about 3 to 5 business days after passing the CMCA exam.
Thank you. And then Diana would like to know, is there a specific recommended time frame to be given to prepare before sitting for the exam?
Yeah, so we do recommend all of our candidates to spend between 6 to 8 weeks preparing for the exam.
All right. And then Yasmin has asked, what is considered continuing education?
Yeah, so basically anything that will benefit you in your role as a community association manager. For instance, if you volunteer for an HOA board, that will count as continuing education. If you are in a community where a second language is spoken and you want to learn that second language so you can communicate better with your community, then that will count as a continuing education as well.
Okay. And we also have a recertification webinar where we get into those details a lot more. And there's also a lot more information on the recertification page of the camicb.org website that specifically outlines what is accepted for continuing education and what is not acceptable. Now, Dawn has asked, is continuing education, is it all through CAMICB?
No, so actually CAMICB does not provide any continuing education. CAI, which is the Community Association Institute, they do provide continuing education, such as courses, webinars, conference. If you attend any other conference, that will also count as continuing education. Your local CAI chapter also offer many options, and also the PMDP courses, which are the M200 level courses and 300 level courses.
So before we wrap it up, I just want to ask Laura, do you have any final items to mention?
Yeah, so obviously, thank you everybody for joining us today. And please go ahead and send us an email at info@camicb.org. I'm sure there are many questions that will come out later. Please go ahead and send us an email and we'll get back to you.
Great. Well, hopefully you all have a great afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today.